when you go through the process and you get launched or you come to a conference, the very first thing, I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for all of us, the first thing that hits you, what's up with all these super positive people, right? That's the first. I mean, I'm pretty sure you've gone to other conferences, your industry conferences, and so on. I mean, the unique distinctive trait about our business is that energy, is that passion, that positive attitude, people in the process of self transformation. It's that focus on that individual, the unique characteristics. That's what makes it so unique, isn't this right? So the topic we're talking about is basically the bedrock of our business. It's a bread and butter of our business, if you will. Now, you know, everybody's talking about AI, right? Generative AI is the big thing. I mean, in case you're not talking about it, your kids must be talking about it. Okay, so today there's no way to escape this. And when you talk about AI, whether it's a traditional AI or the new age generative AI, what do people talk about? To have the right AI that doesn't hallucinate, you need to have the right sets of input, train on the right sets of data, right? I mean, you have to do the right training. The algorithms themselves have been there for some time. It's not like the algos are new. Out of the research labs of universities, Googles of the world, these algos have been there for some time. But to train it with massive amount of data and the right data, because if you train it with the wrong data, you'll see AI do hallucinations, AI try to make up things, right? It makes erroneous conclusions if you don't train it with the right set of data, right? So you have to train it with relevant data, high quality data. You have to be very specific for AI to give you the kind of result you expect. You have to be very specific, right? You have to provide feedback to AI. As you're training the AI, you're giving feedback. Now, what were AI supposed to mimic in the first place? The human brain, the natural intelligence, right? All AI systems are trying to mimic the human brain and in many cases exceed the human brain. So the first natural intelligence we all have, that's the brain in us, right? So our brain goes through similar training. Just that, in fact, many of the steps that you do to train an AI model are the same steps that are actually happening to train our own brain, right? That standard discussion of nature versus nurture. Yeah, nature gave us some DNA, and there are certain characteristics of our brain. But a large part of who we are today and who we will become tomorrow is based on nurture, is based on those inputs, just that we don't think of it that way, right? Everybody talks about AI and AI input, and you have some amazing people talking some amazing stuff. You talk to them about AI, artificial intelligence, and they'll write white papers on this. But when you listen to them talk about their own self, what are they doing for their own natural intelligence? You say, what is going on here? You know all the concepts of AI and the same concepts apply to your brain, but you underestimate what you're doing to your own brain. And I think Chuck talks about the most valuable piece of real estate, that's your brain. And how are you training your brain? So if you're following all the AI revolution, or every single one of that applies, all of these points, if you do not train your brain with the right data sets, your brain will hallucinate too. Okay. Like people love saying AI hallucination. What about your own brain hallucination, right? And you will reach erroneous conclusions too. If you continue to train your brain with the wrong data, with the wrong models, with the wrong feedback, what's going to happen to your brain? Exactly what happens to AI brain. Your brain will hallucinate. You will create erroneous results, and you'll wonder, how come I'm not getting the results as somebody else? Because what is happening is you're doing all the right inputs, or all the wrong inputs, and all the wrong training to your own brain, right? So if you understand this, then growth mindset and positive mental attitude, you'll understand why those are so important. Question is, what does right training look like? What does right training for the brain look like? Go ahead, Vicky.
So yeah, in your life, right, you're everything you choose to be. You believe what you become, right? The most powerful tool for each and every one of us is actually your brain. because brain can be programmed. You give the right input, you'll get the output. It's like a computer. So, just imagine liver can't be trained, lung can't be trained, heart can't be trained, but brain is the most neuroplastic organ and it can be trained. And the right programming, whatever input you give, that's the output you're going to get. The right programming actually will create right beliefs in yourself. The right beliefs will create the right feelings. The right feelings will create the right behavior. And the right behavior creates the right actions and the right results. So it all depends on the programming of your brain. And how do you program your mind? You control the self-talk. What you talk to yourself is the most important thing, because that's how you're continuously training your subconscious mind.
By the way, folks, we all know that the talk we do is one of the input that's going into the brain, right? It's interesting. It's originating from the brain and it's training the brain. It's actually input and output of the brain. It's very interesting. And it far exceeds anything else you listen. In fact, what you talk to yourself day in, day out, probably on a ratio is like 100:1. What your brain is listening from itself far exceeds what you're listening from others. So while what you're listening from others is very important, the self-talk is the single largest input that's actually going to your brain.
Yeah, that's true. And you take charge of your brain. You take the responsibility what you put into your brain. It's not everyone's responsibility. When you came into this life, you took the first breath, right? When you leave this life, you are taking the last breath. Why should you give anything to anyone else in between? So you should take charge and control whatever input is going into your brain. For that, you need to create the right model, right association. And you look at the coaches and mentors, you can see the self-talk, the way they talk, the way they're speaking positive, the way they're creating belief. Now identify, it's not like this, you're going to talk self-talk, talk positive, but the negative thoughts will definitely come. But you need to identify those and reframe those negative thoughts. Replace your fear, your failure, your disbelief with, I can do it, I will do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to become successful. You try this day, you start the day by fighting with someone, or you start the day, I can't do it, I won't do it. That day won't be that good. But you start the day saying that I'm going to do it, I'm going to achieve it, it's absolutely going to be fantastic. So it's in your hands. You can identify and reframe those negative thoughts.
Talk about that you want, that you don't have. Don't talk about that you have, that you don't want.
Yeah.
If I'm not feeling very well, I'm going to say I'm feeling better. The other of saying is, oh, I'm not feeling well. Like not feeling well is a negative way of feeling. There is a need. So we understood this right from the day one we entered this business, that what you talk to yourself and how you frame everything in the positive context is very important. Mikey talked beautifully about the right model, analyze, reframing thoughts, goal setting. I mean, to be positive, you also have to have a sense. I mean, people who are going nowhere usually are not in a positive mental attitude. Now, some people talk about, I have attained nirvana. Okay, now if you are one of those people who has attained nirvana and you don't need to have any objectives and goals in life, good for you. Okay, maybe you've reached the Buddha state. All I know is Buddha himself took to reach nirvana. And I don't know whether Buddha had positive mental attitude after that or not, but I can tell you that he's Buddha because he's unique. No, most of us are not going to attain nirvana, which means we need to have objectives. We need to have certain objectives because those objectives give a sense of purpose. It's very tough to be positive when you don't have a sense of purpose. And with purpose comes goals.
Yeah.
So, you can do everything else right, but if you don't have purpose, you will fall back. The negative programming will come. So you definitely need to have a sense of purpose. You definitely need to have goals. You need to verbalize it's not just enough to have a sense of purpose. It's very important to verbalize. That's the reason why companies talk about their goals. Companies talk about what they want to achieve, because companies try to verbalize. This is your own company. You verbalize. And then you plan and you organize and you work towards your goals. If you have goals and then you're not working towards your goals, then you'll have cognitive dissonance. You'll basically, again, create an environment where you could fall back into the negative. So
Yeah, in fact, set goals in different areas of your life. That's how you're going to get a lot of energy. In the business, whatever your volume goal, your structured goal, how many people you're getting for the next conference. Are you qualifying for LQ? Are you qualifying for C3? Start speaking it. When you start verbalizing it, actually it gives life to your dream. It gives strength to your vision, and it shows path, light on your path. So you have to start speaking your goals, and that's one of the most important powerful self-talk you can do on a daily basis, and just organize and work towards your goals.
As you start developing these positive mental attitudes and you have your sense of purpose, you also create a success mindset, right? There's a mindset for success. Today, for example, we strongly believe if you give me two kids, you show me two kids, one kid is acing all their exams and they have a certain growth mindset.
Yeah.
And another kid has an amazing growth mindset, but not acing the exam. 10 years from now, I'll bet on the second kid. Right? That's a mindset that we have developed. You can have a dream, but you will go through some challenges along the way. That's another mindset we have. We know that before you see victory, you have to see the struggle. Now, some people think dream, struggle, victory. Well, if you're struggling, but you're not improving, you're not putting the right work ethic, and if you're not continuously in a feedback loop and improving, then victory might not happen or victory might be delayed. So it's not just enough to be struggling, and struggling is not a badge of honor. We know we all have to go through it, but are you in the process of mentorship? Are you in the process of improving? Are you in process? That will definitely take you to victory. So we have that success mindset. We know what success looks like, or what is the process of success. And you need to have a healthy body. I mean, if you have a healthy body, you'll have a healthy mind. If you have an unhealthy body, you will have an unhealthy mind. In fact, one of our major objectives for 2025 is not just the objectives Maithili talked about, which is, like Maithili said, all aspects of our life. We also have certain very important health objectives because that's equally important. So if there are major challenges that you're going through on the health side, then you need to work on it, right? I mean, it's very tough to have a very positive mental attitude when an aspect of your health is really bogging you down.
And if I may add here, we are in, I want to mention this point here. We are really blessed to be in this business, folks. Coaching, mentorship, and a system. It's absolutely amazing. And you're the best line of products. I can tell you this. It's amazing wellness package, holistic package. How many packages Amway is actually on the cutting edge and is introducing. And I'll tell you what, folks, I have at least 15 to 20 customers who just take Perfect Health Pack, just looking at my energy and looking at my lifestyle. So because it's a process of, when people look at you, they should feel that, do you have a healthy mind and healthy body?
Now, along with positive mental attitude comes the concept of growth mindset. They're very closely related, right? So the concept of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. I just took this picture from the web, and there are tons of such pictures, right? But the idea is, I mean, just for those of you who are relatively new to getting launched, I mean, just check out growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Go and read Carol Dweck's book on growth mindset. But growth mindset is when you see every failure as an opportunity to grow. Can I learn something new? Challenges help me grow. I'm inspired by success. I know that I try new things and I understand that I'm a product. My success is not just going to be a product of who I am, but I can learn to be better. That's the growth mindset. In the fixed mindset, my talent, whatever talent I've been given, that's a maximum. I have to now just use that talent to do whatever maximum I can do in life. I'm either good at it or I'm not, because it's a talent-based viewpoint, right? It's not a process-based viewpoint. Fixed mindset is like, I have this talent, so I'm good. I don't have this talent, so I'm bad, right? And usually these are also the people who don't like to be challenged. They see success of others, and because they don't understand the process behind it, that creates jealousy, right? Because when is jealousy created? When you understand that success is a process. If you see somebody succeeding and you say that I can also be successful, then you're not jealous. But if you think of in terms of talent and you say, oh, this person is that talented, why did God give this person that talent? Why didn't God give me this talent? Then by definition, you'll be a bit jealous, right? Because you're a believer, not in a process. Now, some people can be more talented and maybe their process is a bit faster. But everybody can learn to be successful if they understand it's a process. But the fixed mindset people don't see it that way, right? And hence they stick to old methods, right? So this is kind of a definition of growth and fixed mindset.
And in fact, growth mindset is the bedrock for our business. And for me, when I look at it, it's like you do have flaws. No one is perfect. You're not flawless. You're not perfect. But do you have it's not your ability, but can you put the effort to become what you want to be? The effort is more important. It's not your ability. And also, sometimes you fail, but can you learn? Can you grow to the next level? And of course, Ben covered about the success of others. Are you inspired by the success of others?
So how do you develop a growth mindset? And by the way, when we talked about how do you develop a positive mental attitude and training your brain, that and this kind of go hand in hand, right? In fact, I would argue that if you develop a growth mindset, then the positive mental attitude becomes very simple. If you try to develop a positive mental attitude without developing a growth mindset, you will keep falling back into the traps. So between these two, developing a positive mental attitude and developing a growth mindset, which is more foundational, the growth mindset is more foundational. Yeah. Because a person who doesn't have the growth mindset will not last long in the positive mindset. Okay. But a person who has a growth mindset, even if they're using some wrong language, that language can be fixed and they can develop a very strong positive mental attitude. That's why sometimes you wonder, how come I've been in this business for some time, but I'm not developing the positive mental attitude because the growth mindset is missing. So really focus on the growth mindset. Now, what do growth mindset people view? They view challenges as opportunities, right? They prioritize learning over seeking approval. They focus on process instead of results. Results are important. While results are important, they understand is a process.
Yeah.
In fact, Carol Dweck, in a beautiful video, Carol Dweck wrote this book on growth mindset, right? So she talks about a teacher went to a school in Harlem, one of the most worst performing schools. This is a teacher at Stanford. Carol Dweck herself, was from Stanford or is from Stanford. And this teacher goes to Harlem, one of the worst performing schools in all of New York State. Now, the environment there was a fixed mindset environment. And what she does is she introduces this concept of yet. In fact, Carol Dweck is a big believer in the concept of yet versus the tyranny of the now, right? I mean, if you have read her book, you know the concept of yet. You're not good at this yet, right? So in the school, they introduce this environment where instead of they talking, how are you doing now? Oh, you're not good at this yet. Combine that with the process. They started focusing a lot. They started grading people or giving praise to people on effort. Yeah. Hey, we want to great effort. Okay. And the kids started appreciating, oh, great effort. Now what's happening is you have these neurons in your brain. As you now get appreciated for the effort, you put in more effort because you tend to do what you're praised for. And over time, new connections are forming in your brain. And suddenly what you were not very good at, you start becoming good at. And that school went on to become, I think, whenever this study happened, that school went on to top. Can you believe, like they started ranking amongst the top schools in New York State. One teacher changing the mindset of the kids was able to take them from the bottom of the state to the top of the state in math grades, right? So this is what did she do? The power of the, mistakes are fine because you're not good at it yet. Yeah, the word yet is very important. Because yet is the belief that if you follow the right process, you will become good in the future. You're not good at it yet, right? And that's exactly how our process works, right? When you're going through the business process, why, like Chuck and Uma launched this C3 Club, because it's a focus on the process. Wherever you're seeing incredible business momentum happening in this business, you're seeing people qualifying for C3 because that's the process. They're not good at something yet because maybe somebody's going through C3 and not seeing instant results because they're not good at it yet. They'll get there, right? Because the belief in the focus on the process instead of results. We talked about cultivating a sense of purpose, learning well over learning fast. Learning, by the way, if you can learn well and fast, great. Yeah. But if there was a choice Now learn well. If you can learn well and fast, you will see quicker results. Learning to accept constructive criticism, that's the whole mentorship coaching topic. Cultivating grit. What is grit? Grit is basically the perseverance and passion for long-term goals. So many people, they do not have the grit, but there's a way to cultivate grit. That's a separate topic. Maybe, the leaders here will ask somebody to talk on that topic. That's a whole topic by itself. How do you cultivate grit? There's some great books on this, by the way, cultivating grit. Because what is grit? You understand that it takes time to succeed in anything, right? I mean, that's my last point. Right? It takes time to succeed in anything. That means you need to have grit, right? Because you need to understand the perseverance and passion for long-term goals. And every time you reach a goal, you set a new goal and a new milestone. So these are some techniques for developing a growth mindset, might be.
And also don't focus on the outcome, on the results, but focus on the value that's being added to you. And I'll tell you what, I think Upin beautifully mentioned all the points. I just want to mention that there's so much of value that will be actually added to your life as a product of this business. You become a better version, you'll develop the grit, perseverance. It's shown in all areas of your life. If I can give the example, I think actually I'd gone for Rim to Rim last 2 months back, and I was able to.
By the way, Rim to Rim is North Rim to South Rim of Grand Canyon.
Of Grand Canyon, hiking, all, bunch of girls went there, and we could finish that. And I had some blisters on my toes, but in spite of the blisters, we were able to finish it in just one day without taking any break. And people were zapped at it. And it's because of what the value you get and you understand. It's mind over your body. At one point, my friend was asking me, she said, you had so many blisters and you're like walking so fast. How could you do it? It's just because how strong you become mentally through this process. And it's amazing, folks, and it reflects in every area of your life.
Some traps, right? There could be multiple other traps. Sometimes people say, I'm in the HTP mode, hence I have growth mindset. No, honoring is a basic foundation, but just because you're honoring doesn't mean you're actually in the growth mindset. The only way you can say that you're in growth mindset is if you're doing action, you're receiving feedback, and you're improving. That's the only way somebody can actually know. If somebody comes to me and says, I'm honoring, I'm doing all the things, I'm doing action. No, that's not growth mindset, right? Because growth mindset can only be, because remember that yet point still required you to improve, right? And that improvement can only happen if you understand the process and trust the process, and you do the action, you receive the feedback, you make improvements. Yeah, then you can say, yes. Maybe you have challenges in your life. You have hurdles and obstacles. You're overcoming those hurdles and obstacles. You're making changes. Yeah. Then you can say you have growth mindset, right? So just blind action is not a way to say that you have growth mindset. Okay. We're not putting this down. We're just saying that, hey, if you're under that trap, fix it. Right? I mean, these traps are not unfixable, but sometimes people get into that trap thinking, hey, I have growth mindset. I've read the book Growth Mindset, so I have growth mindset. Okay? No, just reading the book Growth Mindset doesn't make you have growth mindset. Just honoring doesn't make you have growth mindset. By the way, not honoring will definitely not have growth mindset. Okay? The reverse is also like, so really? If I honor the don't have growth mindset, then why should I honor? Well, for sure you won't have growth mindset if you don't honor them. But just honoring also doesn't mean you're having the growth mindset. You have to have all the pieces together.
In fact, if you're doing all the action, like you're doing process appointments, you're doing everything, but when it comes to feedback, if your cup is really full, you're not open for feedback. And even if you take the feedback and you don't implement it in the next month, or when you do the process appointment again, there's no point. So this loop is very important of action, feedback, and improvement.
Yeah. Oh, if I read a lot and I listen to a lot of podcasts, I have growth mindset. Okay. You can become a system junkie. You're becoming a knowledge repository. And you read everything that you can get your hands on in the system, outside the system. You have a lot of knowledge. But really, growth mindset is about learning what's actually stopping you from going to the next goal. And are you fixing that very important thing? So if you give me two people, one person is becoming a complete repository of all kind of knowledge, and one person is more directed They do all the things that are supposed to be done, but focus on what is really stopping them from going to the next level. Who do you think will succeed? The one with all the knowledge, or the one who's fixing the current problem, current bottleneck, right? The one who's fixing the current bottleneck, right? The other one has all the knowledge and all the know-how and has all the answers and all the quotes. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. You actually don't have growth mindset, because growth mindset is you growing, right? And oh, my knowledge, I have more knowledge today than yesterday. Well, that's just knowledge. But insight and wisdom is at a different level, right? I mean, growth mindset is at that level. I attend associations and I'm surrounded by positive people. So I must have growth mindset. If I hang around 3 people with growth mindset, then I have growth mindset. No, you have the potential to have growth mindset. Okay. Definitely surrounding yourself with negative people, you will definitely not have growth mindset. Okay. So for everything, there's a corollary. I'm assuming that I don't have to explain that point. Because remember what we talked about, your self-talk. You can surround yourself with positive people, but you don't have the process orientation, and you say, oh, look, they're successful, but I don't have what it takes. I can't do stuff like them. Because you're not a believer in process. Remember that fixed mindset, growth mindset, you're having a fixed mindset thinking. You can actually have somebody with fixed mindset surrounded by people with growth mindset. It's possible. Now, at least you're giving yourself an opportunity to fix it. Because if you're hanging around growth mindset people, sooner than later, their thinking will rub off on you. But you have to do some thinking. You have to make some changes. Your self-talk has to change. There's no question that one of the most important things you can do is to develop a very positive self-talk and speak it first thing in the morning, put it somewhere you can see. Like surrounding yourself with the right people is like taking the horse to water. But till the horse drinks it, it doesn't make a difference. That self-talk is that final step, so you have to do it.
In fact, when you're surrounded by positive people, you get a lot of motivation, external motivation, which is actually very good. But when you are alone, are you internally motivated to do things? That is very important. Are you in motion? Are you using that self-talk when you're all by yourself? That's the most important thing. And I'll tell you one thing. Are you a free radical? Are you a directed radical? Directed radical is like you take it, you actually take the feedback, you improve, and it shows in your process appointments, it shows in your volume goals, it shows everywhere. But a free radical action will go all over the map, excited, thanking everyone. But when it comes to the feedback from your own appliance, you're actually closed there. So you have to be a very directed radical in this business.
Well, I'm listening to my mentor on all the business topics. But there are areas of my life that's actually blocking me, but I'm not going to discuss that. Okay. So you could hypothetically be in mentorship and coaching, but unless you're transparent and are willing to share the things that's actually holding you back, maybe the fix can't happen. And then you say, oh, coaching and mentorship doesn't make a difference. No, coaching and mentorship can make a difference only if you're not being transparent, because in your mind, yeah, I'm taking coaching and mentorship. I'm actually learning how to put this business together. But the things that actually block me, I'm not going to discuss that because it was too personal. Well, then how can actually that get fixed? So make sure you're not falling into that trap. By the way, guys, these are just some traps that came at top of our mind. We have stumbled over every one of them. Mm-hmm. So before you think we are preaching the choir, preaching something, we have made every single one of those mistakes and continue to sometimes make those mistakes. The sooner you realize and the sooner you direct yourself, you fix things. And I know there's a team of champions and we're all like on massive growth spurt.
For the calendar year 2024, the average income from Amway for all U.S. registered IBOs at the Founders Platinum level and below was $723 before expenses. See www.amway.com/income-disclosure for details and the most up-to-date information. Earnings depend on many factors, including customer base, business